Hi, Rachel. Why don't you go ahead and get started? There you go.
Fantastic. Can you hear me, Jerry? Can everyone else hear me? Fantastic. I'm getting a couple of nods in the room, which means I'm live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this panel session titled Attaining Successful Careers in Tech, Voices from the Field. I'm Rachel Onamusi. I'm the CEO of VNSync, and I'm joined by four amazing women, all of them doing great things in tech. So I want to thank you all for joining me. Thank you for taking the time. This has been a labor of love for those of you who are joining us from the UK. Thank you so much for staying up this late. The sessions so far have been amazing. And I'm just really anticipating great things with this particular session because I've got some amazing women on board. Over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be asking them questions about their journeys in tech, asking them to tell us how they did it and give us some tips on how on how we can all move forward and upwards and onwards. The last 15 minutes will be taking questions from you, the audience, so please do pop your questions in the Q&A section, and we will get to as many of them as we can. So let me start by introducing the ladies before we dive into the questions. First up is Ms. Michelle Grover. Michelle is the CIO for Twilio, bringing over 20 years of technical experience to her role. Before this, she was a senior VP of software development at SAP Concur, where she led a 300 plus global team of mobile and platform engineers focused on TripIt and the Concur mobile app. Have I got that right, Michelle? I got
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Next, I've got Nicole. So Nicole Reineke is joining us from the States. She is a distinguished engineer and UX strategist in the office of the CTO at Dell Technologies. She has founded and led high-tech companies, driving innovation into products and services while filing over 30 patents. Tiffany Wilson is a strong leader and an empathetic, invaluable member to have on your team. She's an IT senior consultant with Dell and has held director and senior managerial roles across various business sectors, leading departments as varied as mergers and acquisitions, planning and strategy, project management, global finance services, just to name a few. She's a Texas girl, and so is my final panel contributor, Betty Flowers. Hi, Betty. I see Betty there. Hi, Betty.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
sweetie. So Betty is the global program manager, global HR services for Dell as well. She's an accomplished and innovative leader with more than 20 years of leading teams in technology. Her background spans diverse fields such as vendor management, diversity and inclusion, project management, managed services, enterprise services. I mean, the list goes on and on. Her work history shows a commitment to revolutionizing processes and driving business outcomes. So that's the panel. These are the ladies. It's such a pleasure. Thank you all so much for joining us. Yeah, I can see everybody, and I guess you can all hear me, right? Everyone can hear
Yes,
me?
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Amazing. So we're going to dive straight in. The first question I have is to all the ladies, actually, because I want to get your various takes on this. Uh, there's been a lot of talk today because the theme is around resilience. So there's been a lot of talk about women in tech and how, it can be sort of swimming upstream, basically, when you come to thinking about women in tech. There's been, for a very long time, we tried to do away with um, sort of very blatant gender discrimination. So now instead we have to struggle with a lot of microaggressions and things like that. So I would like to hear from everyone in the room. What would you say is the biggest challenge you faced? And how did you overcome that? So I want to go really quickly around the room just to get an idea of what would you say is, this sticks out as something that I had to deal with in my career in tech. And what did you do? What were some of the practical things that you had to do to overcome that? So I'm going to start with you, Michelle, if you'd like to go first.
Sure. So I've got about 30 years experience, which means that the vast majority of my career, there have not been people who look like me, were women or the like throughout through that technology career. So I think probably the most consistent thing that I faced was the reminder that I was the technologist in the room, not my typically white male counterpart or employee that would be along with me for the ride at a customer site sometimes, even. And what I found is that, now there are times when there's malice or there is condescension that is intentional, but a lot of times it is more ignorance than anything. Now that doesn't mean that there's always a counterbalance to that. And so I try to approach certain things with humor. So what is, we would go into a site and, we'd be in the room and my poor employee would be asked to solve the customer problem. And he would stare at me horrified because he didn't know what to do. And he would just kind of say, "Oh, Michelle, can you help with that?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I guess it'd probably be nice for us to go around and introduce ourselves right quick,
Right.
and kind of just counterbalance it." But the biggest thing is just, trying to take it head on. You don't have to do it in front of everyone. You can pull people aside. So when I see certain situations, making sure that I address them kind of immediately, pull people aside. And then more importantly, now I get a little less of that, but I do need to make sure that I watch out for the folks on my team and make sure that they're being conscientious. So making sure that my folks, when they're looking around, they're paying attention to what's going on, male, female, whomever, to make sure that there's fairness in the room in our interactions. And if you make a mistake, own that mistake, apologize for that mistake, and try to make sure that you're conscientious going forward, and then ask the same from somebody else.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So I'd mentioned to the ladies when we're having the the rehearsal sessions, that I would really love to hear practical advice. So thank you for that, pulling people aside and actually having that conversation with people. I know we can have a lot of these sessions that can be very, but I want to hear the steps. I want to hear the actual practical things that you can do. So thank you so much for that, Michelle. I'm going to go straight to Nicole. Nicole, so what would you say were some of the challenges that you faced on your journey, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so what Michelle said really resonated with me. I just want to put that out there. I think one of the biggest challenges that I had was early on in my career, where I kept seeing people get promotions that I didn't apply for. So I would sit there at my desk and I would watch one person after another getting promotions. And I finally went into my boss one day and I said, "Hey, I can't believe this person got this job," which was a technical leadership job. And he said, "Yeah, I can't believe you didn't apply for it." I was like, what just happened? Yeah. And I was so upset. I was like, nobody told me I should apply for it. And I kept waiting to be picked, is what I found, that I was waiting for someone else to tell me that I should apply. And I have to tell you, from that moment forward, I have put my name in for anything I thought I was remotely qualified for, including like jumping in and starting companies and asking for that VP title, and just going for it, because I was never going to not put my name in again after I realized the mistake I made. So put your name in, no matter what, especially when you think you're not qualified.
And then learn going up. I think this is going to resonate with Betty, so I'm going to call on Betty next. Okay. Somehow I think this is going to resonate with you.
Yes, it will. I think with my challenge, I echo a lot of the sentiments from Nicole and especially Michelle, for obvious reasons. But I would say with me, one of my largest challenges was I didn't come from a technology background. So for me, walking in from years in healthcare, saying, "Hey, I want to go do these things," my challenge was, who would believe me? So I started adapting this mantra, saying I could tell you better than I could show you better than I can tell you. So I would go find people who could help me, because that was my challenge. I wasn't technical. I didn't go to school for these technical type of roles. So during my off time, I would come into the office at 4 o'clock in the morning on campus. I would find someone who would say, "I will help you." I would sit with them. No one knew I was doing these things. Then I would go back to my regular job, and I did this for months, all sorts of things, to the point I started mastering a lot of the technical things, and people didn't even understand why, to the point sometimes I was what you would call a trailblazer. I would have these roles that I had created. They would create the recs and I would interview for them because I'm thinking, hey, I created this. Let me go in here and apply for this role. So I think with me, it would be more so of I didn't come from this background, but I had to find the people who would believe in me, who would help me. And a lot of times people told me no, but I never stopped trying because I always lead with an open hand, always lead with kindness, and never be afraid to say what you don't know and what you want to learn, because you would be surprised who wants to share their knowledge with you, who would love to say later down the road, I know her. I helped her. And you don't forget them. Always say, I didn't make it by myself. So I think that was my largest challenge coming into a technology arena that I was not told to walk into.
That you were not told. So you walked through those doors
I
yourself.
did. I did.
I'm coming to you now, Tiffany. What would you say was your biggest challenge in this field?
So echoing what all of the ladies have said and what Betty has said too about being in technology was not my educational background at all either. And I came from a completely different industry. So imagine these, all of these perceived barriers, and then also being an introvert. So being a woman in technology, being a woman in a technical position, you had to earn your street cred, right? But at the same time, I had to figure out ways to work from behind the scenes. I was never going to be one of those people who wanted to be there out front. And as I watched, the same as Nicole did, other people moving ahead, advancing or whatever, and realizing that just plain old fashioned hard work is not a ticket to entry anymore, right? It's just the basics, what you have to do. So I basically had to learn how to work through others. I had to learn how to develop advocates for me. I had to ensure that people knew that if my name was associated with something, it was going to be successful. And they were out there as well then, again, being the mouth that I wasn't necessarily comfortable being. And it's okay. And something that I tell people today, as I've grown through my career, you don't have to change. If you're an introvert, this is the way you're wired. You just have to figure out different avenues of how to get to the points you want to get to.
Fantastic. I just want to have a lead-on question from that. So what would you say to I understand you saying work through other people, but how? Because if I'm trying to do something, I'm not going to leave my job to go champion Tiffany. So
Sure.
How would an introvert do that?
Relationship building. You have to spend some time building relationships, very solid and very consistent. And know that sometimes while you're slogging away, somebody may be out there advocating for you, right? But it's relationship building.
Do you ask the question? Do you say, I want you to say my name in the next meeting? I would like you to.
That's hard to do. That is also hard to do. You have to be a little bit vulnerable in doing that, and you have to trust. And you have to say, yes, sometimes to people that, I'm not comfortable putting myself out there out front. Just know that. Keep that in mind. And if it's someone who is really your advocate and they have no problem and they're very comfortable doing that, they are out there talking for you while you're working behind the scenes.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for that. Now I'm going to go to individual questions because I've listened to all of you to some extent in building relationships with you ladies. And there's certain parts of your stories that I would really like to bring to the fore. So I hope that the questions I have will give others an understanding of why you are where you are today and how you got there, and also show resilience in overcoming vulnerabilities, because I think it's quite easy to see women in senior managerial roles and senior SVP roles or in the C-suite and think, oh yeah, but she doesn't have problems. She doesn't have the problems that I have, or she's not like me, or she couldn't possibly understand me. It's all very well for her. She's got it all figured out. but they need to understand that the figuring out took time and it took intentionality. So hopefully some of these questions will help reveal that. Once again, I'm starting with you, Michelle. So I want to know, obviously you've talked about you get to a scene and people ask your male counterparts who may work for you or who may be lower than you in the women leaders in the tech space. Is it as lonely as people describe it? What are the challenges or opportunities that you have encountered as a woman in the tech space? And what keeps you going? I know that's a mouthful. So it's basically, what are the challenges for women in particular in the tech space? What
So I
keeps
would
you
say that,
going?
oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Rosemary.
what keeps you going? And is it as lonely as people describe it, or are there more women in at that level of management now? And what are certain challenges or opportunities that you have encountered on your journey?
So, I guess yes and no for the lonely. There, in 30 years, we've gotten a little better. That's I could probably say. There's more that guess that we want to count that. But it's still relatively I always say other. There is still a majority and there is still a minority, regardless of which group you fall into. So that is still true of the tech space. I do think that we're a lot more cognizant and we speak about it a lot more. I think one of the things that I'll use as a kind of a discussion point is that I spend a lot of time mentoring. I spend a lot of time, much to my poor EAs, as you know, Rachel's dismay, spending a lot of time mentoring and sponsoring. And she's like, you don't have any more time. You can't put this on your calendar.
Yeah,
Just others, just to be available and be a ear for people to listen to. But I think one of the things I've spent a lot more time recently speaking to mentees or others about is that, do you want this role? I get asked, I get told all the time how great it is to be in the C-suite, how great it used to be in the SVP. It is hard. Like, I don't know that I want to lie about how hard it is and what a person's expectations are. Because I think a lot of times, and I think it's always true of everyone, when you see from the outside in, which is why it's easy to say things like, oh, well, you can't be going through the problems I have. You didn't see the road. I said 30 years. I didn't say 2 years. I didn't say 5 years. I said 30. That's a long time. So I've done a lot of things. I've made a lot of mistakes and I've done a lot of things well. And that's the reality of it. But the larger part is, it's not lonely if you find like-minded individuals. They don't have to be folks that work with you. They don't have to look like you. They don't have to be you. They, as a matter of fact, the better the variant group of people that you have as your support system inside and outside of work, so that you can bounce ideas off of, the better you will be going forward. And the better I think it will make you as a leader or whatever role you want to do. If I did not take a path, there was no little Michelle at 12 saying, one day I'm going to be a CIO. That was not reality. That's not where we started, right? So as I've grown and taken opportunities, a lot of the things that the ladies have said resonate. I didn't have a straight path. I said, that sounds interesting. I'll try it. Then I asked somebody to let me try it. Sometimes I just tried it anyway. And one day they looked up, I was already doing it. So they had to give it. That also works too. There is not a straight path. But what I will say is, anybody that looks, if you see what everyone works for, it's hard. Do you want to do that? And there is no shame in saying, you know what? I don't want to do that. I'd like to do something different. If you are an introvert, believe it or not, I am a charted introvert, but I can't do that in practice with the leadership role that I have. I have to have time for me. And there are times when I have downtime, but as a leader, it's my responsibility to kind of get out there in front of my folks and do these things. So I have had to balance that, and I have had to change a little bit, but I haven't changed who I am. But I have that circle of people that support me in and outside of work, to make sure that I have some balance in and outside of my life.
Fantastic. So do you think there are any unique opportunities for what, do you think would you say, could you think of anything that you would think, you know what, if you're a woman, this is the time to do this because this opportunity is now available where it didn't exist 30 years ago when I started out in this game.
Well, a lot of rules around board seats. So if you want to be on a board, it's a perfect time, by the way, because they're running after women. A lot of rules have changed around that, especially places like California. So board seats. The other thing I would say is that if you want to be a successful company that sells to the world, not just your region, city, state, whatever, you want a diverse group of people. The perfect example I give is I had a niece who was part of, they were printing t-shirts up for some kind of drive, and I don't know why, but she was the only girl in this particular group. I forget what the drive is that they were printing the t-shirts for, and she was out the day they picked the t-shirts. When the t-shirts came in, right across your breast was this number, and it looked awful. It looked awful. When she showed me the shirt, she was horrified. She was like, I can't wear this. I can't give this to my friends. And it was not bad, but you could tell that a room full of boys probably just said, oh, well, that's a logo and that looks great. But it literally wasn't, there's no malice. There's no one was different to say, maybe we should think about where we're putting this label. It looks odd. This seems like an odd thing, right? So that's the example I give. And it's a silly example, but it's a real example, which is she was just out of the room one day. That one decision, they had to reprint the shirts. They couldn't get, it was a big to do, and they hadn't thought about this. That's my example for saying that's why it's important to have women. That's why it's important to have more than a majority. A majority thinks a certain way. You need others if we're going to sell globally and universally. So that's why it's important to have other folks.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much for that. So something Michelle isn't going to tell you, so I'm going to tell you anyway, is she's not joking about bullying you to greatness. She will be on your case. She will call you. She will stress you. She will stress her executive assistant, and the girl is just going through just sort of leaps and just growing. So mentorship is so important. And if there's a woman who walks the talk, it's Michelle Grover. I've never seen anything like that. She will be on your case like white on rice. It's mental. So yeah, she does do what she says. And thinking and talking about mentorship brings me to you, Tiffany, because I've listened to you, and I think there's just a lot of power in stillness, in the way that you communicate, in the way that you lead. It's a very balanced, I talk to you and whoosh, you're very balanced and very calming, but it's still very forceful and very driving and motivating people to do better. So I guess my question to you is, did you have a mentor starting out or further down the line in this space? Would you say it benefited your career? And more importantly, I hear a lot of talk about mentorship and allyship and sponsorship and advocacy. Where are they? Because I don't see anybody with a big sign going, I'll mentor you. So how do I find a great mentor? Where are these mentors? How do I decide what a good mentor looks like for me, which might not be a good mentor for Nicole, say, or someone else? So what would you suggest to somebody who, would you say mentorship is pivotal, important? And if so, how do I find one? You're on mute. You're on mute, Tiffany.
Sorry, I would say that mentorship is very important, and I did not have anyone in the very beginning. And it was when I realized that even though it was informal, that I was mentoring other people, right? And helping them. And when I kind of realized that, hey, maybe I do want to go into a leadership position. What I did was I looked around across the landscape in the area that I worked in, and actually looked outside of that area and asked a senior manager, someone who was already in leadership, hey, will you take me on? I'm this little peon here, but will you take me on? And he agreed to. And I specifically also was looking for someone male, right? Because I wanted someone who I knew was known as being a listener, for one thing. So I did that, and I can say it was one of the best things I ever did for myself as far as navigating your career and navigating organizations and knowing how to build those strong relationships and with who. But you have to have in your mind already at least some direction where you want to go. I agree with Michelle that in most cases, there really is not a straight path, right? So you have to figure out and navigate 2 or 3 different paths, possibly.
Yeah.
And the mentor that I had did help me do that. And that was something that I then incorporated in myself, even when I became a formal mentor to other people. And I mentored people who weren't in IT. I mentored folks who, had very different backgrounds as well, but maybe wanted to do something different and didn't know how to get there. But I would say that the first mentor I had, even though it wasn't at the very beginning, was pivotal.
Fantastic. So you're saying in order to choose a mentor, the mentor doesn't necessarily have to look like you, but they have to have values that are important to you. So for you was listening, for example.
It was listening. It was knowing that, this person recognized everyone on his team, no matter what their backgrounds were, no matter how diverse, no matter what their strengths or weaknesses, right? He was very much an approachable person, which, I think Michelle would agree is to draw you out of your, not necessarily a shell, but to get you more comfortable, right? Going down one of those other paths. You need someone who's there to kind of say, hey, have you thought about this? Why not try this? I think you have the skills to do this. I watch you work. I listen to you. And I think that maybe you don't know that you have some attributes that are valuable in other areas. And then again, like I said, I've tried to incorporate that when I mentor folks.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much.
Sure.
So I'm going to go quickly over to Nicole because I want to hear about, Nicole does a lot of stuff in engineering and she comes across as very sort of structured. So this is, I asked this question because I wanted the answer from you, Nicole. If you had to start from scratch, knowing what you do now, what would you do differently?
Everything and nothing. That's the short answer. But actually, something Michelle said earlier is really true for me. As somebody who looked and acted nothing like anyone else around me, I got a lot of feedback from people who were in positions of power about how I should look and act. And it was everything from you need to lower your voice when you speak in a meeting to you need to wear a suit jacket over your t-shirt that says, Nirvana on it. And I mean, it was absurd, the level of detail people would pick at me. And I really followed all of this advice and I tried to incorporate it for a very long time, for a decade or so. I'm 25 years into this. And at some point, I just realized that they were giving me conflicting advice. And this was...
Hi, Nicole. Are you able to hear us? Okay. I'm going to let Jerry, I think we lost her. So I'm going to go to Betty. Nicole?
Absolutely, there was this gravitational shift. Oh.
Nicole?
Did we get lost? Can you hear me?
Yes, you did get lost for a minute. Can you repeat that?
Oh my gosh, it was brilliant. It was... I just slayed, and you have no... Totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. Yeah. But I realized that people were giving me conflicting advice, and that I could never I could never be what they wanted me to be, and I just had to stop it and be me. And then I noticed there became this shift in gravity, where people who liked me for who I was and who saw what I brought to the table as being of value started being part of my circle. And I sort of run into these people who end up sort of sticking to my circle because I am who I am. I try to be kind and smart and thoughtful, and
Oh, oh no. Okay, if I get her back, nope, gone. Yeah, if we get her back, I'll let her finish. So I'm just going to go over to Betty for her last question. And then Nicole, if you can hear us, please do send me a message in the chat and I'll definitely come back to you. Betty, the last question I wanted to come to you with is, can you tell us how you came into tech? Because I know you've got some unique experiences and you went from health to tech. And then proceeded to just go up the ladder. So what are some of the things you learned and how did they serve to empower your role? Why did you, because I think you could have just given up and gone, you know what, no, I don't have the degree, I don't have the qualifications, I'm just going to go back to health. So what was it, how did you, where did that resilience come from?
Well, I think first of all, you're correct. That's a book within itself. How I ended up at Dell. So I would say into the tech industry, from healthcare, one of the ways is the point that I had made a promise to someone that was very close to me that I would, once she transitioned, I would find a 9 to 5. I was a single mom raising 3 children, and my youngest daughter was still even going through surgery. She was born blind, and she was going through a series of surgeries. So I read about this gentleman who went to UT, started the company, dropped out of school. I said, let me go over here and see if they'll take a chance on me. And so I said, where could I start where I could learn the company and help people? And I have a passion for helping people. So that's how I entered into tech through customer care. And as you read off the list, in my 20 plus years in technology, I have worked in over 13 plus lines of business. And so I would say what helped me to stay strong, I took a lot of classes, I talked to people, and I can even relate to Nicole. Even coming in, so many people told, you would hear people inside, outside, you should dress this way, you should look this way. And I tell you, back in the day, I was a fashion statement walking anywhere I went. You never knew what my hair was going to look like. You never knew what I was wearing. I never wore the same boots. But the thing about it, they could see that I wanted to learn. I was eager. I wanted to, I realized I was Betty Incorporated. And I needed people to understand that when I show up, I'm showing up for my own company, which is me. And everything I touched, if I didn't know it, I wanted to master it. And not only master it, I always led with an open hand. So as I learned, I passed it on to anyone else who wanted to learn. Right. And so I built those strong relationships. I had every mentor. I would see something I saw wonderful in someone. And I would say, show me how to do this. What helped you to do this? Then I would take all these little tidbits from all these people and created my own solution for me. And so I would say that is really what helped me, making sure I had mentors, paid it back by being a mentee. My tribe was key. One of the things that I learned, my internal and external tribe is everything. And you should always, you don't just want any tribe. You need the right tribe. And when I say that, that means you need people around you who will speak your name in a room of opportunities when you are not there. Even if you don't know how to do the role, they know that you could come in and figure it out. They know that you're scalable. And then also, you need people in your tribe who will defend you in a room full of wolves. People who are ready to tear your character down, say that you don't have the skills, you didn't graduate from this Ivy League college, you're not a part of my clique. They can stand up and say, wait a minute, wait, no, I know this person. I've known this person. They have, their track record has proven itself and they really care. So, and be your authentic self. See, that is the thing that I do, and I always did it. And I don't know, sometimes it could have hindered me, I don't know, I don't care. But one of the things about it was people knew when they saw me, they was getting the real deal. They were not getting a representative. They were not getting, this make-believe person. I am who I am around the clock, inside of work, outside of work, wherever I go. This is who I am. And my relationships are key. It's kind of like, I call it like a round trip, right? When you go and fly on this airline because you trust them, you're like, okay, I have respect for them, so I'm going to spend my money with them. Then you say, I'm going to trust them that they're going to get me to the place where I'm, to get there and get me back home. So I replace that with respect and trust. That's my R and my T. You must have respect and trust with everyone you're dealing with. And when people disappoint you, don't make it about you. It has nothing to do with you. You don't know what's going on in their world. You don't know what they're dealing with. It is not about you. And you just say, hey, what they think is none of my business. I am here to focus on the larger goal. And if you focus on the larger goal, you're going to reach your goals. But you have to do it with honesty and being authentic to yourself.
That's amazing. Thank you so very much, Bessie, because I was thinking health to tech. I want to hear this story. Okay, Nicole, smells like teen spirit. Let's get it. Can you can you hear me?
I can. I had to switch over to cellular though. Fios down. So
fantastic. So yes, you were telling us about just a decade trying to please everybody until you found out that they were giving you such conflicting information.
Yeah, and so really, I mean, Betty said it more eloquently than I ever could. Once I just decided to be exactly who I was, people started gravitating to me, and the tribe built itself. And that was really important and really interesting. And much like what Michelle said earlier too, and I know Tiffany said this, is it's all about finding people who are like-minded, who have similar goals. And I found that people with similar ethical standards to mine ended up sort of coming together, and that became my tribe. And I've remained connected to so many people across the 25-year career that's how I find new opportunities and how I know where I can go somewhere. And it's going to have people who are like-minded, who want to move something forward together. And I'm very careful about the jobs I pick now because of that previous experience.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think there's just so many similar strands coming together. Be yourself. People are going to say what people want to say. You've got to show up. You've got to do the job. You do have to have what it takes. Nobody goes to bat for someone who's subpar. Nobody goes to, no one's going to fight away the wolves when they don't have the records to show for it and to say, give Michelle this job because she's going to get it done. People only go to battle for people that they know can get the job done. So show up, be prepared, do the 4 a.m. courses if you have to, do whatever you need to do so that your personality can make room for you. So it doesn't matter if you are in a t-shirt. If you are the most qualified person in the room, they're not going to have a choice but to say, I guess we're going to have to get Nicole and her t-shirt to come do this. They're going to have to call on you, right? So this is it. Your qualifications, and then your another thing that I found really interesting and is Tiffany's message about leading from the back. We're not all that gutsy. Not all of us can just say, hey, give me the job. I want the job. I deserve it. I'm good enough. Give me the job. So the idea of playing the chess and the checkers back of house and just talking to people who can advocate for you and be that loudspeaker that you can't be, I think that was my biggest takeaway from this. We've got 10 minutes, so I'm going to go over to Jerry to see if we've got any questions. Otherwise, I've got questions.
We do. Hello.
Hi, Jerry.
I'm back. I've been here listening, but we've been, we're running the conference, so there's been some fires. But that's okay. Everybody's having a good time. So we do have some questions. Let me start with the first one. What do you feel are the most necessary qualities needed to be successful in tech-based roles? Sorry, in tech-based roles.
Okay, I'm gonna throw
So
that. Yeah, go Nicole. Yes, please.
Yeah,
Yes,
so as a so I'm a distinguished engineer at Dell, and I've been in engineering leadership roles for years. And the best thing that you can do, other than know your stuff, right? That's sort of the price of entry, is to get really, really thick skin and learn how to smile when someone insults you to your face and not lose your temper in the meeting, and then exact revenge at a later time.
Karma's
No,
been
no,
real,
I'm just kidding.
isn't it?
So the
No,
follow-up
no.
question is exactly how do you carry out the revenge? We want details now.
I don't know if you're allowed to joke, but I'm joking. No, but
Like
by
that.
being, I always walk in making sure I am as qualified as I could humanly be for the job that I've been assigned to do. And then when somebody is really in technology, and I hate to say this out loud, but it is just a series of poorly behaved human interactions. And so being able to smile through it, and I actually have a list of responses that I keep in the back of my book. When somebody said something to me that's really outrageous, and I just I feel the heat rise up, I flip to the back of my book and I have like a set of canned responses, which are like, wow, that's a really interesting statement. Thank you for sharing your opinion. And it's literally like a list of 5 or 6
gritted teeth.
Right.
through gritted teeth with a smile. And then I have a polite conversation after the fact. You've got to follow up. I know Michelle said that earlier, but immediately after, there is a discussion that happens one-on-one with the person who really crossed a line. And that eventually leads to a more informed public relationship.
It really does. It really does. And something too that, Rachel and I talked about is our soft skills. And that's something that I think that we undervalue a lot, especially in tech, because whether you're an engineer in infrastructure or software development, we recognize, right, that not everyone has those people skills. And that's why I've taught in boot camps and whatnot, just a little section called soft skills, right? And it's what Rachel referred to as the active listening, right? Paying attention to details and taking ownership, empathy. Everybody has something going on in their lives, right? Pick up the phone and call somebody before you blast an email to their manager, right? And some little thing that's kind of always helped me, and it might sound silly, but I do share it, is do something for someone else every day. And it's no matter how small it might be, and no matter who the person is. Say hello and find out the name of the receptionist at the front desk. For younger folks who you kind of see with that deer in the headlights look, just give them a little comforting word or something, a little pat on the back, or ask them if they need help. Nothing is too small.
That's great. Next question is, how do you find a mentor outside of your current company? And I think that can be important, especially in this day of layoffs and people having to step back from jobs.
I'll go to Betsy.
I'll take it. Yeah,
Okay,
I'll
go
take
for it.
that one.
Yeah.
I would say, believe it or not, I have more mentors outside of Dell than I do inside. I really do. And it's because of relationships. One of the things I would say, if you see a conference, go to the conference. This is the truth. The way I met Rachel, I saw her at a conference. I went to LinkedIn. I was so impressed with her. I just said, hey, I'm Betty Flowers. I like what I see. I'm looking forward to this. I saw this, yada, yada, yada. Can we connect? So don't be afraid to connect with people. Don't go ahead.
Can I add to that, please? Because there's stuff she's not going to tell you. So this person comes into my inbox and says, I'm Betty Flowers. I'd love to connect. And I go to her profile and I see global program manager, global HR. You're taking the mic. I know you're not who you say, because she was so humble. She was so, hi, I'm Betty Flo. So I go to another girlfriend in Dell and I says, what's a program manager in Dell? Do you know this person? And she says, no, I don't know this person. I was like, what's a program manager? She says, well, it's the person that, I was like, okay, all right, let's cut it. How high up is this person is what I'm trying to figure out. And she says, oh, she's about 4 or 5 people from the top. And I was like,
Wow.
she's in my DMs. Why? She's in my, and she started talking and she was so personable. And to be clear, Betty is a leader. She has instances when I've been interacting with her that she cuts the nonsense and she gives, and you see that C-suite seep out of her. You do get the leadership part of her, you do get the no nonsense part of her. But something that I see in all the ladies that are on this panel, and which is why I needed to have, there were a couple people that we were we were really struggling with time and can you make it, can't you make it? But I said, as many of you as can make it, I want you here, because the humanity that you all showed let me know that I was going to have a very authentic panel. I know there are lots of people who talk and don't do what they say. Oh, when you're a leader, you really should do this, and don't do any of those things. So I really wanted to have conversations with women who would tell other women how to do it.
Okay.
And they know how to do it because they are doing it.
I think we have time for one more question. I think you're all going to like this. Have you run into different treatment based on gender to different cultures? If yes, how did you broach the subject of culturally driven differences that might be impacting the workplace relationship? So how have you dealt with that, ladies?
Michelle.
I can take
Go,
that.
Michelle.
That's our last question, by the way.
I can take that one. So yes, of course, it's a given. But I will say, and it's funny because I just did a panel or discussion not too long ago. Oh, it was a podcast. And what I tell people is, just because you look at someone doesn't mean you know them. And I try to remind people, especially for those of us here in the States, my great grandmother was Japanese. To look at me, know none of this, right? So when you look, but this is something we talk about in our family. For my son, this concept of to look at someone is not to instantly know them or everything about them or who they're married to or what. You don't know these things about people. So when I get the stereotype or whatever and I've traveled the world, so it also depends on what TV shows, this is true, have made it to different parts of the world.
It is.
That is sometimes the exposure that somebody gets before you can ever come. And what you do is you have a discussion and you get to know people and you explain the things that you consider offensive or are not offensive, and you do the same for others. I know when I go and when I travel and I've had teams around the world, you have to be cognizant of regional cultural differences. The way I manage and lead my teams in China is very different than the way I led my teams in the Czech Republic.
Right.
Very different types of engineers, very different schooling, very different culture. Some are more verbose. Some, for other cultures, that's extremely disrespectful. And there's nothing more interesting than putting them all in one room and trying to figure out how to create a product. It gets really interesting because now you have to play mediator, which is to get them to understand. So I say that I go from different worlds because I think that is the clearest thing for folks. So when you are in a room and you are with other people, you should not make assumptions. That's where what the ladies have said about also active listening, not active solving. I'm an engineer too, so my head goes straight to solving before it even finishes the story. And then I stop, listen, hear what's going on. If somebody is not doing that for you, address it, pull them aside, explain this concern. If it keeps coming up, then you may have to manage it in a more uncomfortable way, which is HR, your leadership or whatever. So you don't let it go. I will say it's very difficult and it's very uncomfortable, but you don't let it go. Find an ally or a person that you trust that you can take along with you, but you address it, but always active listening, listen to what's being said, address it immediately, and just don't make assumptions just because you're looking at folks or you think you know everything about them.
Right, and active listening also means you're listening for what you hear, but you're also listening for what you don't hear.
That's great. That is a perfect ending to a perfect session. Thank you, ladies, so much. We really want to thank everyone who attended the session. And I also want to encourage everyone to rate this session. There's a rating button on the page. So please rate us. And we're concluding the day, but there are many communities activities taking place. So join us in our communities. And thank you all so much. And Rachel, I'll let you close out.
I really don't have anything else to say other than thank you so much to all 4 ladies. This has been such an impactful session with so much to learn. I really could listen to you all day. Thank you for all of the practical tips, real life circumstances, and real life tips for thriving, because, well, that's what I really wanted to hear. So as I said, this is what I asked for. So thank you for delivering. To Michelle, Nicole, Tiffany, Betty, and for everyone in the audience, thank you so much for staying with us. Here's to resilience, here's to thriving, here's to doing great things in tech. Bye-bye.
Bye. And
Bye,
please join
everyone.
us. Please
Bye.
join us again tomorrow. We've got a lot of great content, and I think you're really going to enjoy our keynote speakers.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Y'all take care.
Bye.
You too. Bye.